Here's the facts I want to read you. We're going to get down to some hard stuff here.
Yes.
Dear Art, I'm sure the good Father would agree that belief in God must come from one's own faith.
Yes.
Then it would it not be true that faith is necessary for one to believe that demons also exist? I personally believe that his God, meaning yours, Father,
yes,
or any God, does not exist. To me, it's all a fairy tale. So, would my non-belief of the angel and demon, God and devil, heaven and hell dogma, mean that I am one whose body cannot be possessed? And if so, what does that say about that particular theology? So I guess, number one, would somebody of his sort be somebody whose body could not be possessed?
No. His body can be possessed. His belief or disbelief is no guarantee his body won't be possessed or can't be possessed. But that doesn't mean it will be either. It's the profile. We try to create the profile of the possessible person, Art. We've tried it since 1970, and there is no profile.
There is no profile.
No, it's a random thing happening.
Rich, poor, good, evil.
Male, female, homosexual, heterosexual, educated, uneducated. It doesn't make any difference. That's not the norm, apparently. We don't know what the norm is. It looks to us like completely random choice. Because, Art, between you and me and the Holy Spirit, I know very naughty people. I really do. In New York, I mean, people who have morals that I can't share. I know mafia people. I've come across my share of these people in many walks of life, but they're not possessed. They're just very naughty.
How actually, it's a very good question. There are, as you point out, many naughty people. It's a very kind word.
Yeah.
How do you delineate between the very naughty and the possessed?
Well, the very naughty are usually terribly honest about their naughtiness. A high-class call girl, who is simply a prostitute, will tell you honestly, when she lets her hair down, that she is that. A mafia soldier who is on vacation over here from the West Coast because he's done something over there and he's in retirement for the moment over here. I'm citing people I know. They'll explain exactly what happened. In fact, one of my first contacts as a priest in New York was with a mafia soldier who had been shot up and needed absolution and anointing. They were afraid he was going to die. But that's one kind. The other kind, the possessed kind, is something very different. And then there's the various stages of possession. But it's a very different thing. The phenomena is different. The behavior is different. The things surrounding them are different. The atmosphere, the smell, the behavior, the look, the language.
Father, does possession come upon a person slowly, in stages, or does it come all at once?
Slowly and in stages. It's like any addiction. It becomes, for instance, we're dealing now with a new generation, Art, really. They're always 20-somethings or 30-somethings. Very few 40s. But they're in the 20s and 30s. And the situation is generally the same as the young man who came to me about 15 years ago and said, look, Father, I wanted such and such and such and such and such and such. And I made a pact with the devil. I said to him, if you really are Satan, and if you have power, give me this. And he said, I got it. And now he said he won't let me go. And he did it slowly. And then I inquired into how it happened, and his mind got used to the idea of asking for help and for really a leg up. And he got the leg up in various places and succeeded tremendously in his profession. And then he found that his mind was locked and his will was locked, and he wasn't free. He wasn't free to love, and he wasn't free to choose. And finally, he wasn't free to die.
Father, there are many people who have, at one time or another, let it cross their mind.
Yes.
Let me have this. Let me succeed in this. Let me do this.
Yes.
And I'll sell my soul, whatever.
Yes.
Now, how does one know whether one actually has made a pact with the devil or one has just had a fleeting horrid little thought that went away?
No, it's a very good question. There's this art, and those to whom it has happened will know exactly what I'm talking about. There is this lock they find on their will, and there's the control of their mind, which they lose. It's not that they go all hairy or they lose it, as we say, but it is that they find that their mind is restricted in certain ways, and their will, they cannot do certain things. They cannot exercise compassion. They can't desire certain things. They can't really desire their wife or their husband, if it's a woman that's in question. It's the peculiar lock on the will, and that's generally what sends them, the ones that are saved, sends them running for a priest or an exorcist. What happens in some cases is that they go further into it, and they're completely programmed and controlled.
Well,
and then you have perfect possession, out of which I have never seen any person emerge.
Never?
Never. I haven't seen them. Now, I'm only 76.
So it is not, sir, the classic possession that we all recall from The Exorcist. Not that, but a more perfect...
It's a perfect possession. You see, the classical form is the person who makes themselves very obnoxious in their behavior. And they're really like the child. When a child is hungry, an infant who can't talk, they bang their heads on the ground and they throw themselves around. They may protest. And they're saying, I'm hungry, or I'm dirty, or I'm thirsty. That's one form. And something can be done about that. But when they're perfectly possessed, they don't ask for any help. And they eschew any help. And you can...
How many people, Father, do you think are in that condition? Let's just talk about America right now. Forget the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm. On a percentile basis, you mean?
Sure.
A minimal crowd, a minimal set of people. By minimal, what do I mean? Well, we are 260 million, isn't it, or something like that?
Yes.
I'm trying to make a proportion between the number I've known and the general population. I suppose about 10 million.
10 million.
If I am in my mind, I'm calculating the proportion of people I've been with in this whole field.
Well, here's a tough question for you. Would we generally, if we could see these 10 million people,
yes,
would we find that they are the powerful, the successful, the...
Yes, you would. None of them are obscure. None of them are failures. None of them are without respect and means. A lot of them are in high places. And as Charles II said about his ministers, the higher they go, the higher they climb, the blacker their bottoms get.
But that's the very worst possible scenario for the world. These are the people who are shaping policy.
Well, that is the difficulty, that we do find those in charge of things. And when you do, I've seen the following take place. In a certain bureaucracy, which I won't name, but a very well-known bureaucracy, of a worldwide nature, not merely American. People by men and women of ordinary means, some of them Hindus, some of them Christians, some of them Jews, some of them nothing at all, but with a natural, what I know, for want of a better phrase, civic virtue, isolating somebody who's obviously perfectly possessed and getting rid of them. Because somehow or other everybody agreed, there was a consensus that this person was in alliance with something that militated against our best instincts as human beings. I've seen that happen. And not for any religious motive either. Just not, consciously religious motive. Do you understand what I'm saying? that they felt uncomfortable in the presence of this person, and
yes.
they also saw that the direction of their actions and decisions, which they had power to take within the bureaucracy, was evil, just humanly. I've seen that happen. But yes, there are people in very high places as well as in normally high places who are perfectly possessed. There's no doubt about that.
And they will never be saved.
As far as my experience in life goes, Art, I don't doubt God's grace or God's greatness and God's power, but neither do I doubt or belittle the power of Lucifer, because he is the prince. Satan is something else. As you know, it's not the same being. Satan and Lucifer are different, one from the other. But I don't belittle the power of Lucifer. He is the prince of this world, as Christ called him, and he has his kingdom, and at the present moment he reigns supreme in the middle plateau.
Well, if Lucifer
yes.
has all of these perfectly possessed people
yes.
That are in effect in league with, have made a deal with him,
that's right,
then why does Lucifer from time to time do this horrible thing and possess the otherwise totally innocent who have not asked for in any way any sort of deal with him?
Well, nobody is possessed against their will. You always say yes. Even the semi-possessed, even the obsessed, which is the stage prior to possession, they say yes. You are never possessed against your will. You're never obsessed against your will. You open a door and you say, well, who are you? Or put a foot in and let me look at it. Or it's partial invitation. Mm-hmm. But what must be stressed is that this doesn't happen to everybody who's just barely naughty. Do you understand? I use the word naughty to cover all sorts of human malefactions.
I'm sure.
But it doesn't follow. It's a random thing as far as we're concerned. But there's one more thing which we must stress, and it's not a cause for pride on our part, but it's this, that Lucifer, it can be intensely stupid, as Satan can also, as all demons can be. They're extremely limited in their knowledge. They don't know everything. They're not all powerful. In fact, they have merely been conceded certain powers by God. And that is one of the mysteries of this creation, why evil spirits have been given power. But that they have, and that they reign supreme on the middle plateau, there's no doubt about that.
Father, I recently saw a movie called The Craft. I don't know whether you've ever seen it.
I've heard about it.
It is about 4 young women who decide they will call upon dark spirits to do their bidding. It's quite well done, calling on dark spirits from north, south, east, west.
Yes.
It's a horrifying movie. And to back it up, I've interviewed a number of people who suggest that young teenage girls, particularly young teenage girls,
yes,
are powerful. That they frequently have things occur around them where poltergeist problems have occurred.
That's right.
They've occurred around young teenage girls. Now you have these 4 girls actively seeking out the dark forces to do their bidding.
Yes.
Is such a thing possible?
Oh, yes, and it's an everyday occurrence in our experience. Now, it's not that everybody does it, or a lot of people do it, but as far as happening art, it's an everyday occurrence.
Back now to Father Malachi Martin. By the way, Father, WABC Radio in New York, the big one there in New York, is having discussions with us presently about possibly getting on the air there. The Big Apple. And for 2 Saturdays recently, we sent them programs that we had done in the past, which they ran from, I think, midnight to 5 o'clock in the morning. And one of those programs was one of the ones I had done with you.
Oh, thank you very much.
So you were heard widely there in your own city.
Thank you very, very much, Art.
At any rate, I considered it one of the best, and so we sent it along and they ran it, and I thought you'd want to know.
I certainly do, and thank you so much. That's excellent.
All right. Father, is magic real?
The best answer, the most accurate answer is yes, there is a magic. There is a magical system which is real, yes.
All right. As an example, again, I refer to the movie The Craft.
Yes.
In that movie, it showed there was a dispute between a couple of the young ladies. One grabbed a hank of hair from the other, and they began doing these dark spells.
Right, yes.
And in the movie, this girl who had this magical spell cast against her began to lose all her hair, began falling out. That kind of magic, Father, real, tangible things that can be done to other people.
Yes, that can be, under certain conditions, can be real and effective and horrible. No doubt about it. It can be.
So it can be, in effect, foisted off from one person to another. That's using dark forces.
Yes, under certain conditions. And one would want to outline those, but in general it is that both the hexer, the speller, the person doing it to somebody else, must have an arrangement, be in league with,
yes,
have a pact with,
yes,
demonic forces, and the person affected must lack protection, because we all need protection.
And what protection is there?
To put it in human language, on this level of understanding art, it is the arrangement whereby I, at least in general, in my life trend and in the way I behave, I follow the dictates of what I call my conscience, which is really my angel, because we're all assigned an angel to protect us. Because on this again, in this context, there is always danger of being attacked by demonic forces, either directly or indirectly. And we have an angel, a guardian angel, we call it, or him, or her. There's no sex involved, but we use him or her or it. We always have an angel who can protect us. If we forsake that angel, and the general trend of our life is in the very opposite direction, then we are liable. There's no doubt about that. And I can't tell you, I have one whole filing cabinet full of letters from people who are victims of that.
You are now 76?
That's right.
76 years old.
Actually, truthfully, I'll be 76 on July 23.
On the 23rd?
Yes.
Oh, my. When I talked to your secretary
yes.
The other day, she
yes.
said you were, at the time we talked, at an exorcism.
That's right.
You're still doing exorcisms?
Oh, yes. At the present moment, it's usually directive. That is, that I'm in charge of an exorcism. I'm not usually doing it myself. I don't need to, because there are 2 or 3 going on at the same time. And I decide what must be done, interview the people, and assign it, and then observe, and at times step in to correct something. It goes on continuously, because since I started this work in the United States, and that's about since 1970, and it's now 1997, 98, coming into it.
Yes.
The incidence of possession, and therefore of exorcism, has increased between 750 to 800%.
Wow.
An enormous, and this is only in the northeast corner, Art. In the northeast corner. The increases, and then the amount of covens that have sprung up, genuine covens,
yes,
is enormous.
When you say coven, would that be, for example, Wicca?
Yes, there are Wicca covens, and these are coven is a general term for a group of people who are linked together by one main point: adoration and service of Lucifer.
Huh. And many people involved, Father, in Wicca will tell me constantly that they are not of the dark side.
Oh, yeah, there is a white Wicca, as they call it, and it's really nature worship and that sort of business. It's innocent in that sense. It's a reversal to the gods of nature and the gods of nature as such, and that of course has its own liabilities as regards belief in God itself, in God Himself. But as for the white Wicca, I know the chief Wiccan in Long Island. She's a very respectable lady, and she holds classes teaching people how to enter Wicca, white Wicca, and they will have nothing to do with any other form of it at all. But that's not what we're talking about, really. It's a nature worship, and a lot of people are in it. Many who are in it because of disillusionment with religion: Judaism, Christianity, Catholicism,
yes,
Presbyterianism. You know what I mean? They've had it up to there, as we say, with a formal religion. Therefore, they find this consoling, and they love animals, and that's what it is. They never have sacrifices of little animals, dogs or cats or birds or horses or anything like that. It's a nature worship, and you see, if we use the word paganism, it has connotations for the ear that are sort of bad. These are what the ancient Romans and ancient Greeks and all those people practiced.
Is it as dangerous for one's soul as even the darker forms of Wicca?
No, it is not. And I've met many Wicca people who are led out of it by sheer devotion to nature and by finding out that the beauty and the truth around them must mirror some greater beauty, greater truth, more permanent beauty and truth elsewhere. And that's God. But it all depends. It's very hard to give an accurate answer to your question, because it all depends on what graces have been offered you. Has God entered your life, and have you refused Him? Do you understand me? Have you rejected an invitation from God?
Father, I don't feel I've ever had one. I don't doubt a creator.
Mm-hmm.
However, I have no tangible proof, and I am the kind of person
mm-hmm.
who has a very difficult time believing in that which I cannot prove, and I'm constantly striving to prove and to learn through every avenue I can manage, some
mm-hmm.
of them probably very less worthy than you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm constantly searching and looking, and yet I've been unable to make that leap of faith, and I don't know that I've ever received a specific invitation. How does one know?
Well, I'll tell you. Somebody has said, and it's a way of entering into this, somebody has said that if I say to you, and I'm not me and you're not Art Bell, so we're two mythical people, but if I say to you, look, I want to love you, that's the beginning of love. It's the beginning of love. If I say, I'd love to believe in you, it's the beginning of belief. In fact, there's no Jewish theologian or Christian theologian who would dispute the fact that if you say that, it means that it's a grace in itself. It's a grace in itself.
Just to say the words.
Just to say the words. Because otherwise you'd be feckless. You wouldn't bother. You wouldn't bother your head. You regard it all as piffle, as nonsense, as garbage. And there's this about it too, Art. There's this about it also. That you can be drawn along for decades by the wish that one could get grace, and one doesn't, apparently, consciously, mentally, rationally, and all the while you're getting grace, because grace is something of which you're not conscious.
Does it come upon you as a slow stage possession would?
That's right, it does. And it comes upon you in this, that when you find that, for instance, the fire is in you, that once upon a time tended you to less good actions, tended you to less pure motives, that limited your original fits of anger, of lust, of gourmandise, of jealousy. When you find those fires dying down and a certain pacific sense entering your inner being, then there's something taking place.
But is that not a natural progression of age?
No.
No?
Pastoral experience teaches me, and I'm long enough at it, that on the contrary, in my native language, Gaelic, Dolanishach or Dolanolcus is a famous phrase. Getting older and deeper into sin. The older you get, the worse you get. Pastorally, it's not the way it is art. People do not mellow and mature and get gentle and calm and compassionate. On the contrary, they don't, except some people do.
Well, then maybe there is some hope for me, because surely those things are occurring to me. Those things you described, as I grow older, are occurring to me.
I know they are. And what God must do in your case, and my case, and every case when he wants them, he must purify the rust in you. Whatever erroneous thoughts you ever had, whatever excesses we committed when we were younger, and more stupid than we are at the present moment.
Oh, believe me, there were many for me.
Oh, well, we all have them. There's no human being who, if they're honest, doesn't say the same thing. But the difference between the men and the boys is that there's that. You know, somebody has said, and it's true, between the ages of 35 to 55 or 65, it's a corridor of youth. Mm-hmm. And at the end of that, and towards the end of it, we begin suddenly to realize certain lessons we have learned, if the grace of God is working on us. And you see, God has no form. We say he because that's the way the Bible speaks, and that's where we talk in human language. And we have no neutral words in our English language anyway to express his existence. But he draws us along gently, I think, until finally he can perfect it before we die. So that when we die, we go to him and not elsewhere.
Good. Here's a fax in. I have suspected, Father Martin, that I may be possessed, very subtly, for a long time now. How it started is a long story, but after listening to you, my suspicion is now much stronger. Please tell me if there is anything to do about this, or what it means for my soul in the long term. I'm really scared. Please help. Unsigned, of course.
Well, now, Art, in this case, you see, we don't know what religious denomination this person is, whether Christian or Jewish or Hindu.
Does it matter?
Well, it does, because of the things we can appeal to for understanding. You see, look, you and I now already, from all the talking we've done together, we have a mutual understanding.
Yes.
You haven't got to explain your terms to me at all. And I know where you're going with a sentence. And you know generally where I'm going when I'm talking. But with a total stranger, you have to have some surface markings. You must know what's in their background by way of education, what religious, if any, ritual they have followed or been exposed to, and what are their thoughts, and then what has happened to them in concrete life situations with their wives or their children or their husbands. Mm-hmm. This particular person, what I would say to them, whether they mean something to them or not, they should start saying a simple prayer. And it is to Christ. And it is this, it's 5 words. Hide me in your wounds. And see the effect of that prayer on them. And they can always write to me, if necessary.
Can you perform an exorcism on somebody who is a non-Catholic or even somebody without apparent faith?
Sure. Sure you can, if they consent. I mean, if there's a basic consent. There's a civil as well as a religious aspect of this. There's a civil aspect. You can't do something to somebody unless you get the consent of somebody who is authority over them.
Is it possible to perform an exorcism on somebody without their consent? In other words, in worst-case scenario, could somebody literally be tied to a bed or bound in some way by family members and have somebody like you called in?
Yes, but you have their prior consent. At some given moment, they've said yes. There must be something like that. Otherwise, no. Otherwise, they're perfectly possessed. You're violating their civil rights. You're limiting their actions. You know what I mean?
Violating their civil rights.
Yes, because I mean, if we suspect that John X is possessed, if we have strong reasons for thinking so, unless we have John's general consent or his particular consent, and John is over 18, he's an adult, we just can't aggress him and tie him down. Not in this day and age.
So you can only exorcise those who are less than perfectly possessed.
There is no exorcism for the perfectly possessed. None. None whatever. The perfectly possessed, you can give them a bottle of holy water and they'll drink it. They can handle a host, a consecrated host at Mass. It means nothing to them. They can look on a crucifix and say, oh, well, that's Romanesque, and it probably is 9th century. You know, it'll mean nothing to them.
You said that exorcisms in the Northeast, at the very least, are up 750 to 800%.
Right.
That's terrifying. And what does it mean to you? What's coming?
Oh, it means not to put a tooth in it, as they say in the English. It means that the prince has a wider kingdom than he had when we started off in 1970 anyway. That means he has a wider clientele. And therefore that, see, Art, then, I don't know if you've noticed it, but there's a certain disturbance, perturbation of mind, disequilibrium, at least a certain uncertainty in people today. There wasn't 20 years, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
I have noticed, believe me.
There is this peculiar thing, and it's the demon. There are demons assigned to do this to people. And you get up in the morning and you feel lousy, and you're discouraged about everything. And there's no apparent reason for it. You've got money in the bank, and your wife or your husband are very happy with you. The children are all healthy, more or less. And there's no war on, and nobody's out to kill you.
And yet you're dissatisfied and empty.
And yet you are empty, dry, and despondent.
Yes.
And that means that you're under attack. That means that they want also to affect your spirits so that you spread dissatisfaction and you spread discontent and you spread unpeace. And that's why we all love somebody who, when they come into a room, the light comes with them. Light and peace and joy of some kind or other.
And you know that person when you're in their presence.
Exactly. They don't make you horse laugh every moment of the day.
Sure.
They do give you this, and when they leave, it goes with them, and you don't want them to go. It's you know, you can see, and it's the simplest people have it.
And the opposite is true as well. When you are in the presence of a perfectly possessed person,
yeah, you know it.
You don't wonder about it. You know it.
You know, and then a lot of people see who are not acquainted with the phenomenon itself. And
Father, hold on. We're at the top of the hour. Stand by. We'll be back to open the phone lines. But I want to set aside one line for an interesting purpose. We have with us a very holy man indeed, Father Malachi Martin, advisor to two popes. And you've probably heard him before, perhaps not. This may be the first time. Father Martin is an exorcist. He has done many, many exorcisms. He now directs exorcisms. I think it would be useful and intriguing to open a line, a special line, for those who are either atheists or those who practice the dark arts. And I would like to hear your comments, and I would like to hear an interaction. Yes, this invites controversy, but that's what we do here. And it really is a classic... See, how can I put this? I guess I want to show a classic delineation between good and evil. We have good, and I know there's plenty of evil out there. So I'm actually inviting it on one line. I would ask the audience cooperation. Otherwise, you can call any of the other numbers. But I am going to hold one line open for those of you who claim to be atheists or practice the dark arts. That line is area code 702-727-1222. I'll repeat it again, and I would ask everybody else not in that category to please now hang up. Area code 702-727-1222. Heaven knows, or maybe that's a poor expression, I can safely say that I get many, many calls and faxes from atheists. I would be interested in hearing from you. Many calls from those who practice the dark arts, magic, whatever you want to call it. So again, I request the cooperation of the audience in not calling that number unless you are one of the above. It is area code 702-727-1222. It should be intriguing. Father, welcome back.
Thank you.
We have done this on previous programs, Father, but yes, if you would, describe for the audience, before we get to the phones, exactly what a real exorcism is like.
Well, the essence of an exorcism, when it's really an exorcism, by the way, just as a preliminary remark, let me state this much. A lot of people have the idea that reciting healing prayers over somebody is an exorcism. It's not. The essence of exorcism is a confrontation between the exorcist and the demon presumably possessing the person who is being exorcised.
Uh-huh.
It is a personal confrontation. Question and answer, and command, and question and answer. It's not a question of a beautiful prayer or aspirations. All that can be included one way or the other, but the essence of it is the exorcism itself, the confrontation, and the idea of the confrontation is to relieve this person of the power possessing their will and their mind, therefore their soul.
What occurs during this confrontation? I mean,
what occurs is, first of all, there's the difficulty of getting the demon to talk.
Away from the phone a little bit, Father.
Yeah, it's the difficulty is that the exorcist must first of all achieve is getting into contact with the demon, presumably possessing this person. That's the first thing, and that sometimes takes some time. Sometimes no, but sometimes it takes a long time. A lot of cajoling, a lot of abuse, and a lot of effort. And there are certain rules that the exorcist must follow, otherwise he's going to fail. Number one, when that does take place, when there is contact and there is dialogue, then the exorcist must find out the name the demon assumes. The demon always assumes a name when he possesses somebody, and how long it's there, and why it's there, and then get its consent to depart. And that's the essence of an exorcism.
To get its consent to depart. Suppose it obviously does not want to depart.
It doesn't ever want to depart. You've got to get its submission. Its consent is a difficult word to use. It's submission to being expelled. Because you see, there is an entire theory and belief behind it all, Art, it is that as long as this cosmos endures, as it is, demons have a certain liberty, a certain freedom, and they roam on what is called, figuratively, the middle plateau. Once this cosmos ends, and there's only heaven, then there's only hell. And they go back there permanently, and it's more intense suffering for them. They never want to go back there. They'd rather roam around the world. And you have examples of that in the Christian Bible, in the demons who possessed these people that Christ exorcised. They said, please put us into these swine. Remember the incident of the Gerasene swine, Art? It was a hog farm, obviously. There was a whole flock of hogs, and they possessed these poor animals, and they all rushed into the sea over a cliff. They didn't want to be sent back to hell to suffer, just to suffer. They wanted to roam the world on the middle plateau. But it's a whole mentality which the exorcist must have, and because he's got to understand who he's up against.
Father, question.
Yep.
The middle plateau.
Yes.
Remote viewers, psychics, people who claim powers and insight that others do not have, are they dabbling and moving within and joining with this middle plateau?
They are. Dabbling is a mild word. They're doing much more than that. And it's a very dangerous thing because you can be locked into it and eventually end up possessed, certainly obsessed. And it is a very tempting one for many people who have psychic gifts. I had an interview with somebody there a few days ago, and he wants out of it. He originally entered it voluntarily because it corresponded to his sensitivity, and he felt that he could get certain wisdom from it. Now he knows it's slavery, and he wants out of it. And he will get out of it, too. So the middle plateau is a very dangerous thing, and people who use Ouija boards, who do transcendental meditation,
yes,
who engage in spiritual seances, properly so-called, who indulge in Black Wicca, or in direct cultivation of demons, they are entering willy-nilly the middle plateau, and it's very dangerous. It is very dangerous.
All right. Let us be a special first-time caller line. You're on the air with Father Malachi Martin. Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, okay, I'm on. Oh, these New Agers make my teeth hurt, Art. I've been practicing Wicca for about 30 years plus, and Father Martin there sounded so in touch with everything. I was wondering if I could ask him a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, ma'am.
All right, Father?
Yes.
Would you say that things have been going kind of crazy in the world since the Catholic Church broke with tradition?
Yes.
Would it be better if the Church went back to the old traditions?
Yes, but I think now, dear, that's impossible. They can't go back, unfortunately. What will happen will be some new form. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, I say unfortunately because you can see my prejudice there. It would be better, but they can't. They've gone so far.
Yeah. Okay, because at one time I was a Catholic. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, with my religion, I pull some of my favorite saints into it, too. Because, as you know, with Wicca, we encompass a lot of different religions.
I know you do.
Yeah.
But that's all right.
Yeah.
Provided you honor Christ and...
Oh, yes. It's a strange combination, but as most Wiccans find a place that's comfortable for themselves. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've started a couple of covens, and that was one of the main things that I would present to the people, is for them to find a place for them that was comfortable.
Yeah.
And in Wicca, we really don't have black and white. That's just an easy way to explain what we do.
Yes, I agree with that. But we have to use it as a way of denominating things, you know.
One thing I've been finding is there's been a lot of dream weavers running around.
Yes, there has.
Bothering people.
Yes, there is.
Why? I know with the New Age, dream weaving is a very weak form of the darker arts.
Yes, there is something let loose there which hadn't been let loose up to now.
Father, what is dream weaving?
Ma'am, you explain it in your language.
Well, you could probably explain it easier than I could. Dream weaving is when you send negative forces to people when they're sleeping.
That's right.
You can control a person better when their defenses are down.
And in sleep, the defenses are down.
Right. You can cause them great illness if they don't sleep properly. Some people have gotten very paranoid.
We have.
Have you done that to people?
No, sir, I haven't. I've put up bindings and wards to protect some of the people that I'm working with.
Good. It gives them protection that they lack.
Right.
There's no doubt about it, ma'am, that you are moving.
What I was going to say is a lot of these New Agers, they're using this dream weaving.
I know they are.
And they don't know what they're dealing with.
No, they don't, and they end up in the ditch, as we say, figuratively speaking. And there's also behind it all, too, ma'am, there's this fact that there has been let loose upon us some other forces that help dream weaving of an evil kind.
Yeah.
And we're trying to combat that, and that's very difficult. It's very difficult. And it accounts for an awful lot of insomnia. It accounts for an awful lot of disorder in families and disruptions and divorces. It accounts for a terrific amount of damage.
Oh, yes. And I've also noticed there's a lot of imps running around lately.
Yes.
Pardon me?
Imps.
Imps. What are those?
For want of a better definition, minor devils that are mischievous.
Yes,
that's the closest definition I can come to.
Yes, it's a good way of putting it. They are mischievous or mischievous, as you say. They are devils. They belong to the middle plateau for the present moment. That's their plane of activity. And they can be called poltergeists, if you want to call them that. They behave like poltergeists at times. There are a lot of those, but I think that's all part of this avalanche that's been let loose upon us. I don't know why, but that's the way things have gone. And as you said, it did coincide with the disruption of the Catholic tradition. I don't know why.
Wildcard Line, you're on the air with Father Malachi Martin. Good morning.
Wonderful to speak to you again, Mr. Bell. I just tuned in, and I heard mention of the Catholic Church. I wonder if Mr. Martin could give more insight in what is actually going on with the Catholic Church.
Well, provided I don't scandalize you or hurt your feelings.
Me.
Well, you know what I mean. I have to be careful because it's one of the few things that my gentle Lord Jesus condemned was to give scandal. And there are various ways of giving scandal. But if you want me to be very frank, here's what's happening as far as I'm concerned. There is a worldwide apostasy going on amongst Catholics. And it is on the highest levels and the lowest levels.
Mr. Bell, do you know who I am?
No, not yet. Who are you?
Well, this will give you a clue. Mr. Martin, what do you feel is the Catholic Church's connection with vampirism?
Oh.
With what?
Father?
Yes?
You are speaking to somebody who claims to be a vampire.
Uh-huh.
Mr. Bell, I'll be sending you some literature, photos, and a lot of information. Hopefully you can help me spread the word about what is happening with vampires in this country and in the world right now.
Have you ever spoken with a vampire, Father?
Yes, I have. There was a school of vampirology, that's what it's called, in Long Island. I knew the members of it in the 70s. I've lost track of all of them.
That school's been shut down. It has moved.
Really?
Yes. It's now somewhere in the Midwest.
Well, yet I know that then there was another settlement or group in Louisville, Kentucky.
That's the one. It's the exact same school.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But I only had passing.
But do you know you are aware that the Catholic Church is involved in vampirism?
No, I'm not aware of that. That it's officially involved in vampirism.
The Catholic Church of today isn't the Catholic Church it was, let's say, 4 years ago.
He said the Catholic Church is not the church it was years ago, I think.
Oh, that I know. That I fully agree with you. But that there's wholesale official vampirism, I did not know. I'm not even contesting that.
A lot of the scandal that is plaguing the Catholic Church today about children, it isn't a coincidence that this is happening all over the country. And why the church is paying big money to keep it quiet.
I know. We're paying an awful lot. We've paid, since 1985, I think, the Catholic Church in America has had to shell out not quite $1 billion in out-of-court settlements.
Wow.
This is for child molestation.
And it's more than molestation in many ways. I'm sorry to admit.
Of course it is. The molestation is a general word covering an awful lot.
Yes. Mr. Bell, when you receive the information, I need to find out how to send it to you.
All right, well...
you understand I am in hiding.
Yeah, you just listen for my address. Father...
Yes?
I heard you agreeing with him more than not with regard to the state of the church.
Yes. The causes of that state is something else.
$1 billion, short of $1 billion, Father?
Almost $1 billion in out-of-court settlements.
Why is there so much evil that it requires that kind of money to cover it?
Well, Art, you've asked me the $64,000 question. If we knew why this plague has descended upon us in the States, just in the United States of America alone, we'd be very happy because then we could do something about it. We don't quite know. Now, by the way, it doesn't involve more than 4 to 6%, and it's the official figure, of the clergy. But the damage is huge. And the reports we're getting about Europe and Ireland in particular are very discouraging. The same plague, which I call it, is afflicting those places, beginning to afflict them. But now that it's due to vampirism, that's something new in my horizon.
All right. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Father Malachi Martin. Hello. Hello there. No, I guess I didn't push the button. Sorry about that. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Father Malachi Martin. Hello.
Oh, all right. This is Stephen in Albuquerque.
Albuquerque, yes, sir.
Yes, on KOB. Father Martin, it's been a pleasure and an inspiration to hear you on our show.
Thank you very much for saying that, sir.
I wanted to relate two experiences to you and would sort of like your thoughts on it.
Yes.
One was a number of years ago. I was involved in, I was experimenting a little bit with shamanism.
Yeah.
And I had a rather negative experience. I tried to induce a shamanic trance. And shortly thereafter, a large blue and red bird with a very long beak appeared before me about 3 feet away. And its beak started pulling, like, the best way I can describe it is a stream of energy from my chest. At which point I invoked the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. And the bird disappeared.
Okay.
And my question on that would be what your thoughts on shamanism were generally, and if it is purported to be a positive endeavor by those who practice it, why I ended up having this negative confrontation. That's one story that I'd like you to comment on. The other is that my father passed away about 4 years ago under very painful circumstances after long protracted illness.
Yeah.
And about 2 months ago, I had a visitation from him.
Did you see him?
I didn't see him. I was upstairs, and I was asleep. At least I believe I was.
Yeah.
And I felt myself moving downstairs, and I picked up the phone because the phone was ringing, and and it was him.
Yeah.
And he said, as only my father would have said at the time, he said, things sure are different on the other side. And which is very characteristic of something he, like he would say.
Yes.
And it was amazing because I wanted to ask him a million questions about, how he died and some family conflicts that had arisen from the circumstances of his death.
Of course.
And he said, I don't have time to talk, but just be true to yourself, be happy with who you are, and I'll talk again later.
All right, Father, from that, I would ask you, do people communicate with people who have passed on? Do they really communicate with them, or is this a concoction of their own needs in their own mind?
If it were merely a question of being a concoction of their own needs in their own mind, that would be one thing. At least it's innocent. The difficulty is this, that our friend here from Albuquerque, who's been very frank talking to us, he endeavored to practice shamanism, and shamanism is an open door to the middle plateau, and that middle plateau is dominated by spirits not friendly to our souls, and they can deceive us, and we can be hoaxed without our knowing it. And especially when it's a question of somebody we love, like my father, or my mother, or my sister, my brother, or my friend, my wife, my husband, I can be deceived. And there's only one sure way of avoiding being hoaxed, and that is submitting it all to a very sharp rule of discernment, which would take a long time to explain right here and now, but it's spiritual discernment, because anything touching the spirit, Art, and this I say also to our friend in Albuquerque, anything touching the human spirit, anything invading my soul, my will and intellect, that's how my soul has got to, is of prime importance, because I'm sitting duck for angels and devils, and I must make my choice, and I must be careful what friends I make. And I would advise him to be very careful about practicing shamanism. He had one experience which was a warning to him, and obviously he's protected. Otherwise, that bird would have tore his heart out.
All right. You're on the air with Father Malachi Martin. Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
You know the man who calls about the vampirism and all that?
Yeah, he called a little while ago, yes.
Back in the 70s, I used to take a lot of hallucinogenics, acid.
Yep.
Yeah.
And one night a vampire was in the corner of the living room up by the ceiling and hit me like in seconds. And ever since then, I've had a form of sexual obsession that, I've studied the Bible, but Father Malachi, I know the verse where you're ever learning, but you never come to the knowledge of God.
Yes.
And it's like I cannot break away from this. I know the Bible inside and out.
I know. I would advise you to seek out an exorcist, because what you describe is a form of obsession. Demonic obsession. It's not quite possession.
Well,
otherwise you couldn't be talking like you talk.
That incident happened like in a matter of seconds.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean? I could see that thing in the corner by the ceiling, and it hit me, and I knew it had hit me.
It's instantaneous. It takes just a moment of time.
And then that other problem developed, and to this day I have that problem.
I know
I've even prayed to God and said, I know
you
this
will
is
have,
horrific, but I can't.
Until you get rid of that obsession, and the only way you get rid of that is by means of an exorcist, really. And
but
it's relatively
that sounds so drastic. You know what I mean? An exorcism?
Well, it's not drastic in your case, because you're not resisting it. It's a question
I've been to psychologists, psychiatrists.
Oh, there's
and all
no healing there at all. All psychologists and psychiatrists will do for you, my friend, is this: they will make you viable. Do you know what I mean? You'll be able to carry on. But they
That's about what they told me.
Yeah,
that
there's no healing
you learn to live with.
Yeah, they don't heal you. Only one person can heal you, and that's the grace of our Lord Jesus.
And I should seek out
Seek out a holy priest.
Would that only be a Catholic priest?
Well, I only know holy Catholic priests. I'm sure there are other holy people.
And tell them what's going on in my life?
That's right. If I were you, I'd do that.
Ever since that had happened, this has caused major problems in my life.
I'm sure it
really
has. I'm sure it has.
Father, how does somebody know that, this may be a question for after we come back from the break, but how does one know that you have found the right kind of priest?
You will know that because when we say the right kind, we must mean somebody who is close to God.
Somebody capable of recognizing this.
Exactly, and has the expertise in dealing with it, because, you know, there's nothing worse than an ignorant priest who doesn't know what to do. Nothing worse than...
Or one that costs the church a lot of money, as in...
Wow, yeah, that's you know, but talking in the context of good men, good stupid men can do just as much damage inadvertently. Do you understand me?
Back now to Manhattan, New York, and Father Malachi Martin. Father, yes. I've intentionally invited something of the dark side, just, I guess, as a sort of a contrast this evening, as something different to do.
Yes.
Maybe I shouldn't do it. I don't know. But,
no harm done.
But you know what? There's a lot of it out there, Father, and a lot of people think these are kooks or crazy people, and they're not. For example, the guy who called and said he's a vampire, he's been very serious.
I know. He's dead serious. He knows what he's talking about.
Oh, yes.
I take it very seriously, Art, quite frankly.
A lot of people, Father, who are basically good people, think that these realms, these people who are into these things, are not real.
Oh, they are. The unfortunate point is that they are real. That's the difficulty.
Exactly right. And these are the people that when you're doing your serious work, you're working with, aren't they?
That's right.
All right.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, exactly. You're on the air with Father Malachi Martin. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Where are you?
I'm in the low desert, and my name is Debbie.
Okay.
Dr. Malachi, I believe in both the dark and light, and that they should be together and not split apart like the Catholics have done. And I just wondered, in your studies, I study astrology and not the esoteric kind, and at the time of change, like the one that happened just before Jesus was born, there were big floods for a few years, and about 10 times as many years there were droughts. And I wondered if in your studies there has been reference to that, because most of the references were lost when the library was burned at Alexandria.
There are references. There is a set of men called the Church Fathers, and they lived between 100 AD and 600 AD, taking those as cliché dates. And their writings are considered to be very valuable for Christianity, and they do speak about such things. They speak about such climatic changes, climatological changes, I should say, and calamities of various kinds with water and earthquakes, and mainly floods and volcanoes. They do. You're right.
I'm curious about something you said, ma'am. You said you work with the dark and the light. How do you do that?
Well, I don't separate it. I think that both are a natural part of our environment. And so, and in fact, I'm really worried about some tendencies with the New Age. I'm glad people are trying to get in touch with themselves, but I'm sure the doctor knows that a lot of the people who are learning channeling from other people who don't really know anything seem to have more contact with things that the Catholics would call incubus and succubus than they are with having contact with anything that would give us valid information. And I just, in that vein, I wonder if he's had to cure a number of people who, well, there are people who say once you open the door, it's really hard to get it shut. And I think these people, in their innocence and wanting to see just the good and the light and the happy, aren't looking at what they're doing.
I know, you're right. There is a lot of innocent mistakes there, which end up in a lot of pain. I think that if we could have a long, long conversation, which we can't have tonight anyway, when you say you work with the dark and the light, those are traditional things within Christianity itself.
Oh, absolutely. I grew up in a Christian household.
I know. By the way, there's a balance beyond the union of dark and light, to which I'm sure you have come to or will come to.
Sir, when I was a child, the people who worked with the person that was the missionary in our town who had been to India accused me of being bodhisattva. So I kind of look at everything because I'm supposed to be here to look at the whole picture.
Well, the role of bodhisattva is, has a, I don't know how to put this, but it has a parallel within Christianity itself. A bodhisattva is just...
Wasn't that the John the Baptist?
Yes,
mission?
It's a question of sacrificing oneself for one's fellow man, for one's fellow people. There's nothing disruptive or evil about the bodhisattva, in my view, at all.
Thank you very much.
It must be understood very carefully.
Well, I hope you feel better.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you letting me talk.
All right.
It's been a pleasure, ma'am.
Take care. East of the Rockies, you're on there with Father Malachi Martin. Hi.
Hey, good morning, Art.
Good morning, sir. Where are you?
This is Lance, a fifth-time caller from Park Hills, Missouri.
All right.
I'd like to ask your guest a question.
Sure.
Is it possible for a person to be a lycanthrope and not be evil?
Yes, it is possible. Within the framework of your question, I must say, yes, it is possible. Yes, it is possible.
In other words, can lycanthropy be kind of a gift?
Yes, it can be. And like everything else, it can have a good purpose or an evil purpose.
Father, would you get a little bit away from the phone for me?
I'm sorry, pardon me.
It's all right.
I haven't spoken with a man with this outlook for quite a while, and I got excited.
Well, let me understand, because I don't understand what he just said. So
would you explain lycanthropy to Art?
Well, lycanthropy, the definition you'll find in most dictionaries is the delusion a person suffers that they believe that they're either a wolf or a werewolf.
That's you?
Not by that definition.
No, that's not his.
Let's see. I don't know how to describe it in my terms.
Well, do the best you can. Tell us what you think you are or what you feel.
Well, it's mostly in dreams. I don't believe in werewolves in like the real world or anything.
Yes.
But I've had lycanthropy in my dreams. And, well, that was just a question I came up with while I was listening to your show.
Oh, I'm glad you did.
It's not necessarily evil, but it would be interesting to find out why you have those lycanthropic dreams. It really would.
Do you want to know, caller?
Yes. If he can answer that.
How does he find out, Father?
He must pray, and you see, there's this, but it can be generational in the sense that it can come from factors which he inherits with his flesh and bones, because accompanying that, there's an ancestral influence, and that's something which I can't, at this distance, I can't perform,
Okay, just to make something clear, I don't dream of ripping people's throats out or anything.
I know you don't. You don't.
It's mainly being a wolf with other wolves out in the wilderness type dreams.
That's right.
Sometimes if I do take that half-state form, those dreams, it seems like instead of killing people, I'm saving people's lives. Like I've had a lot of dreams recently of saving people from fires.
Well, that's the good version of it which you share. That's why I say it can be good and it can be evil. But I'd want to know much more about you, sir.
So you don't hear a lot of this sort of thing, then, Father?
No, there's a certain quantum I've come across it in a certain amount of people. It's a minority as far as my experience goes. But I've heard about it and talked with them, but I've always had to inquire about their families. There's a generational aspect to this, which must be thought out, especially if it's as a negative effect. when it has a positive effect, as it has in as this man just said, then I still would inquire about it, because I'd be very curious. It's a rare trait.
Oh, I'm learning a lot tonight. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Fr Malachi Martin. Hi. Hello?
Oh, it's me. Oh, hi.
Yes, hi. Where are you?
San Francisco.
Okay.
And my name is Tiziana, and I'm a first-time caller, and it's an honor to speak with both of you.
Thank you.
I had my question for Father Martin is that I needed some advice on how to respond to my 5-year-old daughter's question. And namely, she came to me and asked me with quite a serious and inquisitive tone and said, "Mom, why when I'm alone I feel like there's someone watching me?" And additionally, before she even asked me the question, I just intuitively knew that she was going to ask me that specific question. And maybe I could attribute this to the fact that I'm also quite sensitive, and I've had episodes where I've been intuitive or, I don't know, psychic, whatever you want to name it. And I also have felt that I have been watched, or I feel someone's watching me. And in particularly, I felt it strongly when my sister had passed away, and it was during a traumatic time in my life. And what I did during those times is just naturally, I just kind of called out to God, to Jesus, and I felt at ease. Now, I don't think that my daughter's experiencing the same thing as I am. And when she asked me this question, I didn't want to put words in her mouth, and I was kind of like caught off guard, and I just told her to describe to me what it is that she was feeling. Was this an animal? Was it a person? And she kind of like tried to grasp for words, and she thought, and she goes, "Well, I think it could be my guardian angel." And I says, "Well, your guardian angel is there to protect you, and it's there to guide you, and what do you feel? What does it talk to you?" She goes, "No, I just feel like I have to run, and I'm afraid."
I have to run?
Yes.
That's not necessarily good.
No, that's not.
And then what has happened, I guess, we're going through some traumatic times. There's
in the family?
Yes, there's been an illness with an aunt, and also my brother has just been diagnosed with cancer, and so I guess I thought maybe she's just feeling all the stresses of what's going on. But she has been coming into sleep in my bed after she's 5 years old, after a long period of time, and I thought, I could tell she's probably stressed about something, and I don't know if I should take this seriously, or if it's just a fluke, or could she possibly be feeling, because she's very sensitive, and she's extremely bright.
All right.
Very artistic.
Okay, ma'am, hold on a moment.
I don't know what you think, Art. Can we talk?
Yes. We
have time?
We do. I would guess, Father, that if this child is feeling something she feels she has to run from, that doesn't sound like a guardian angel to me.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It sounds she's frightened. But the only way to approach her in this matter would be to get her confidence.
Yes. How would I go about doing that?
Well, I think you'd want closer bodily association with her, like lying in bed together.
Yes.
Eating together.
Uh-huh.
And then talking about objective things together, and describing things, or if you come across some flowers, say what you feel about those flowers, and get her to come out like that slowly but surely. Then, does she say any prayers?
Oh, yes.
Good.
We're Catholic, and we go to church, and we say our prayers at night. And
I'll tell you, I'd like to send you something for that child, the Chaplet of St. Michael. But that's rather difficult at the present moment because I haven't got an address, and I don't want you to be broadcasting your address over the air.
Why don't we do it the other way around, Father, and give her a way to contact you?
Yes, well, the way to do it would be my address. My address for the radio is 217 East 66th Street.
Did you say 217 East?
Yes.
66th?
East 66th Street, New York, 10021. And when you write, I want to give you a nickname Teresa.
Teresa.
Teresa, yes. So say, I am the person you call Teresa.
Okay.
And I'll know who we're talking about.
Okay.
All right?
Great. Thank you so much. I just feel so much at ease now.
God bless you.
Take care, and thank you very much for the call. Repeat your address good and slowly, Father, because...
Yes, I will. 217 East 66th Street, New York, 10021.
Good. All right. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Father Malachi Martin.
Oh, it's an honor, Art. Thank you.
Sure.
Father Malachi,
Yes, ma'am.
years ago in my family, we met a man that was healer, and he said he didn't do the healing, but God did, and he healed me of ulcers, so I knew, and it happened instantaneously. Then my mother got cancer, real bad, tumors everywhere, had 5 operations. She was in bed, and and she was suffering terrible with pain, and I went to her home and called him what to do, how to help her. And he asked me if I would let him transfer her pain into my legs, so she wouldn't have to suffer so badly. Well, it's my mother. I wanted to help her. I loved her.
Yeah.
And I said yes, without thinking. I thought I was healthy. I thought, well,
Yes.
it would go right away. You know, it wouldn't, I wouldn't have to keep it. Never thought of that. Well, it's 15 years, and I got the pain. My mother, of course, died. And
Did she die of the cancer?
Yes, sir, she did. She got more tumors after that, and they had to give her morphine, and then she passed away.
Yes.
And
all right, you have really struck an interesting question. We're at the bottom of the hour, ma'am, so we're going to have to go. But is she an empath? Is what she said possible?
Oh yes, it is.
And then even her mother passes away, and she, for life, for her life,
still has the suffering. Yes.
Back to Father Malachi Martin, the young lady who called, or not so young.
Have we lost the contact with her?
Well, not in the sense that she's still listening. I think she gave us her story. She asked to receive that pain, and she has had it now all her life. How is that possible to transfer in that way pain, and what can she do?
Well, the first comment to make upon it, Art, is that it's a very dangerous thing to do. And the man she spoke to, it's not he who transferred the pain. It's God. But you cannot tempt God.
Why would God do that?
Because this is an abuse. He was wrong, that man, in suggesting, it didn't say for a mother anyway,
Clearly, but I don't understand why you say it is an abuse. In other words, this is something she did out of love.
I know, but it was misdirected love, misdirected by this particular healer. And you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to accept from God and heal if you can by other means, but not by that sort of substitution.
Offering up of yourself.
Yeah, it's always been condemned by Christianity from the very start. Because the ancient healers, pre-Christian, and then at the same time, in early Christianity, the Roman and Greek healers used to practice this sort of healing and substitute healing, as we call it in the books. And it's always been condemned by Christianity as wrong. Just wrong, because you don't choose these things. It's one thing to sacrifice your life for somebody else, to save their life when they're drowning or when they're being bitten by a mad dog or whatever, or killed by somebody cruel, and you let yourself be killed in their place. That's number one. But in the matter of disease, and you're fiddling with God's providence in a way which is not holy, not good.
Okay.
Christianity has always condemned it, substitute healing.
All right. What does she do now?
What she does is she gets a holy priest, a holy man, to pray over her and give her a healing process. There's no question of any demonic influence here. It's simply a mistake she made, and she was punished for it. She can merit an awful lot, but a good priest should teach her how to merit grace from God in this matter.
You see, Father, I don't understand that.
I know.
You said she made a mistake and she was punished for it. She took on the pain of her mother, or wished to, out of nothing but pure love.
I know.
And she was punished for it. Why would a fair God punish?
I know, Art. I see your difficulty. It's just that we find out that that's what happens. It's always been condemned by Christianity as something that shouldn't be done.
Okay.
And I my very Christian instinct goes against it. And I know it's always been condemned. It's not the way to go. Why? Well, the bigger problem is why God allows other things, like the birth of babies who are coke addicted and have AIDS when they did nothing except their parents.
Yes.
You know, it's one of these mysteries of evil. I don't know, Art. I have no answer to that question. I wish I had, but I haven't.
All right. What about this one? Father Martin, I'm a Catholic, respect you greatly, but you said something that was a bit disquieting.
Yes.
An earlier caller identified herself as not only someone who practices Wicca, but she said that she had left the Catholic Church. You said that was okay. What she was doing was okay as long as she honored Christ. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I said that.
Or please clarify what you meant. How can it be okay that she left the true church for a pale imitation?
Well, I don't think she left the true church. That's the point. From what she was saying, it seems to me that she was deserting the organization as such. But if she honors Christ and honors his mother and prays and is a good person morally, she has no more left the church than I have. But what she's talking about is the organization, which she found abhorrent for some reason or other. And of course it's not, if she had said to me, no, I practice Wicca, and I worship the devils, or I worship idols, or I worship this world, and no, I don't have any belief or attachment to the Lord Jesus, or to, as you call him, or the Virgin Mary, or the angels, that would be a different story. But you can't say you've left the church when you honor these people, and when you live a moral life. It's just, she has some reason for saying that. I know so many people out who will tell me, I absolutely hate the Catholic Church's organization, its clergy, its bishops, its garbage. And then I find that they're very good people. It's just that something bad hit them. They were maltreated, or unjustly treated, or they were scandalized. And but they're still within the Church of Christ. He still loves them. They belong to him still.
They don't have to be in the organization to be with him.
Not absolutely. They should be. If through some accident, personal accidents, they exit from the formal connection with the organization, they still belong to Christ.
All right. For the call. So even somebody who would say he is an atheist is not lost.
Oh no, not like that. No, the soul is too valuable. Now, the only persons that seem to me to be lost, I stress the fact that seems to me, Art, is the perfectly possessed, because that's a total renunciation, but a total renunciation of formal. I mean, it's done deliberately.
What about a devil worshiper?
Well, if he really worships the devil, he's possessed, perfectly possessed. You can't worship the devil, really worship him as the prince, as everything for you.
I thought of, as I listened to you describe a perfectly possessed person, as someone who would not so actively be engaged in worship of the devil specifically, but might have cut a deal.
Well, once they cut a deal, there's an act of worship implied, and usually takes place.
All right.
Usually takes place.
East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Father Malachi Martin. Hello.
Hello. How are you today, Art?
All right. Where are you?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Yeah, and I believe it was you, Art, first of all, that was asking why there was such a big change in the Catholic Church, and I was just going to suggest that if you think about it, there's probably no other religion anywhere that's quite as organized as that. So if you're wanting to weaken something, that'd be a good place to hit first, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. He's quite right.
And for the father there, I wondered, has he encountered any things that are left from before there were, I guess you'd have to say, heaven and hell were separate?
I really don't understand the question fully. Please.
Things that were around before there was a world.
Before there was a world?
Yeah.
Well, the Lucifer and the Satan and the other devils that we deal with today existed before there was a world.
Mm-hmm. Anything besides them?
Yes.
Yes?
A whole lot of stuff for which we have no human names.
Oh, now there's an answer I did not expect.
Yep. It's very hard. There's no name. We have no human names because we have no physical images. So we can't have human knowledge of it. It's very hard to explain this. And it does belong to the dimensional area of life, but not quite the tridimensional area that we know. See, if it doesn't bore you too much, here's the idea that the universe as we have it today is a reconstructed universe.
Okay.
Oh, look, this is... I'm going to ask both of you to hold on, and we'll pick up on this after the top of the hour, okay? This is too good to let go. So can everybody hold on?
Sure.
Certainly.
All right, good. Both of you then. Back now to Father Malachi Martin in Manhattan. Father, how are you holding up?
Fine. Could not be better, Art.
All right. This was one of the most interesting questions or answers to a question I've heard. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right. The question was, what was on earth, if anything, before man? Father, you said that Satan and his disciples were here, but you said there were others as well.
Yes, I take it, Art, that the phrase you used just now, on earth, is refers to the tridimensional existence that we know
yes,
by
sir.
our senses.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what impedes our mind's understanding the answer to Daniel's question, Daniel from Austin's question, is the fact that our minds and our education has been geared, as it were, programmed on the idea of evolution, Darwin's evolution, the Darwinian idea of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's a mythical idea, and it has nothing to do with reality, and doesn't explain reality. But it does. It's in our minds, and it blocks our intelligence. If you read, and I may seem to be rambling, Art, but I'm not really. If you read the first 12 chapters of Genesis, particularly the first 6 or 7 of them,
mm-hmm.
you will find that interlaced with the names and supposedly historical references, there are phrases and sentences which suppose the existence of beings for which we have no names. They're called the sons of men and the sons of God, the B'nai Elohim, as they call it in the Hebrew, and the daughters of men, etc., and the giants that lived in those days. You find all this. And the old Yahwist writer, the old writers putting this Bible together in the 9th century BC, from the records they had, were doing their best to make a coherent statement, and all they could do was gather testimony. What I was referring to was this, that it would seem, it will take a long time to explain it though, it would seem that the universe as we know it today say you and I and Daniel and the rest of us, is a reconstruction of a universe that was almost destroyed by the first phase of God's creation, namely the angelic world. And the very form of our bodies, is an ad hoc restoration by God. And we won't have this sort of a body when we're in heaven. We will have our bodies, but not this sort of a body. Now, the reconstruction implies that the revolt of Lucifer and the angels that went with him, the Bible says 1/3, but, the Bible's numbers are just numerically interesting. It says that they revolted, and they almost destroyed the first handiwork of God, and there was a restoration in view of the coming of Christ later on, much later on. Now, what existed before that, what was destroyed by this terrible war, this terrible revolt, by the first creatures that came from God's hands, whom we call angels. Angel itself is an ad hoc name, as we say. There's nothing specific about it at all. And it's very hard to be specific about an angel. But anyway, the beings that existed and the forms they took, we have no human words for it. Those chapters of Genesis, the early chapters, they try to fix names like the sons of God, the B'nai Elohim, and B'nai Ha'adam, and the daughters of men, and the sons of God, and the giants, etc. They're all hoc names. They also were at a loss because we would not recognize them as human in our sense of the word, because what is human for us is something with legs and arms and a belly and genitals and a head and arms and exiting from the birth canal of a woman. But then what we're left with, and where we can track it, but it's a difficult and a long tracking process, is this, that there is this middle plateau, which is the remnant of the old original created material cosmos, and that on that plateau, Lucifer and his crowd still function and will until the last day of this cosmos, when it's all blown away by the breath of Christ's mouth, and only heaven and hell exist. Now, that may not be much of an explanation, but at least it's the start. It's the first level of an expression or explanation of what I meant.
Help you out, caller?
I was wondering if you had very much problem dealing with those type of entities that are leftovers.
If I stay with my protection, no. If I step outside my protection, yes, I have what can be literally called a hell of an amount of trouble.
Okay. Wildcard line, you're on the air with Father Malachi Martin. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Where are you, sir?
My name is James. I'm from El Paso, Texas.
El Paso?
Yes, sir. I myself have been practicing Wicca for a number of years.
Yes.
And in growing up, I was around many people who had, I guess in one way or another, stepped into the occult. You know, my mother was into astrology. My father was part of the Rosicrucians back in the 70s.
Yes, yes.
And my wife was featured in a book called Something in the Blood. It was about vampiric lifestyles.
Uh-huh.
And in dealing with all that, I found on the market, I read it quite a bit, and I found a void in books that deal with occult crimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am putting together a manuscript on a book, and I've researched occult crimes quite exhaustingly.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a question for you, Father.
Yes.
I found that many of the people who do commit these horrid crimes were tormented as children. were probably picked on in school, had abusive parents.
That's right. You're right there.
Do you feel that perhaps, in your opinion, the devil or demons have been pushing at them since they were children, or is this something that the parents have pushed on and they have simply found an opening to grasp the soul of these people?
The analysis, the only analysis for the moment that satisfies what I have found anyway, is as follows. You see, if you abuse a child, the child can take it one way or another. Now, supposing the child is, say, 4, 5, something like that, or even 6, but anyway, in that young age, out of infancy, but not quite in boyhood or youthhood, if they take it badly, they can fall under the influence of the demon. If they take it well, which they can, they don't. And what's the deciding factor? Their free will. And that's where there's an initial act of will. I think that everybody who comes into existence in this world, sheer infancy is one thing, where you simply, your mother is your world, that her breasts are everything for you, and you just. But once you start getting any knowledge, any appreciation of the world outside you as outside you, there comes a moment, some stark personal moment, all by yourself, when you make a decision. And I think you make a decision between light and darkness. There's a man called Jean-Paul Richter, a German writer. He's dead now, but he said that he was born in the Black Forest. His father was a woodcutter, and they lived in a small hut. And there was a pile of manure outside their door always, because his father had horses to drag the lumber. And he went out one morning when he was 2.5, 3, about 2.5 or 3 years, and he climbed on top of the manure just to look out, because it was an easy thing to climb, and he heard the cock crowing, and he saw the first rays of sunlight over the tops of the pine trees, and he heard himself say to himself, "Ich bin ein Ich. I am an I am a self. I am me." That sort of a moment of choice. Well, I think that once you exercise free will, I'm sorry if I held the receiver badly out.
Well, I was about to talk to you about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, lad. I've just corrected it when I get excited. The point is that you can make a choice at that early age, which puts you within the realm of the demon. Or you can make a choice and put you in the realm of the angels. And why you make that choice, I do not know. I do not know the factors. I do not know. I think free will is the most extraordinary gift and the most dangerous gift we have.
Do you feel that it is easier for the demons, or however you choose to embody them, to influence children who have lived abused lives?
Yes, I think it is. Because no matter how lovely a child is, no matter how pure it's born, no matter how unsullied its mind and will are, it still has what Christians call original sin, that is the lack of grace. And once tempted to hit back at somebody hurting you, really tempted to do so, puts you within the realm of the demon. But it's more problematic than the latency period, which is problematic in itself. That early period between birth, after ensoulment, birth, and then early infancy. It hasn't been studied by churchmen intelligently, and it must be finally studied.
Okay, one more quick question, Father.
Sure.
How does the Catholic Church deal with a lot of the crimes going on out there. I've noticed even, with my wife, she gets, pen pals that write to her through the book. And there's quite a many children out there falling into the fantasy vampire, whole space there.
Yeah, the difficulty today in America, my friend, it's terribly hard to say how the church should behave or used to behave, because belief in the devil, belief in positive evil, has fallen through the roofs in the Catholic Church today amongst the clergy. And a lot of bishops simply don't believe in the devil, don't believe in positive evil. Everybody is good, according to them, and there's no such thing as evil, really. Devil? No. Devils? No. Hell? No. God is hell? No. God is too good. And it's a goody-goody theology.
This, Father, has got to be the 5th time tonight I've heard vampirism mentioned.
Yes, I know, because it is a one spreading evil. It is still spreading. It's a new thing, and it's part of the lust for blood, and there is vampirism, as it is practiced today, is a means of worship of Satan.